The phone buzzed again, once more. My old phone slid slightly across the kitchen table as if trying to get away. The screen kept lighting up with names I knew too well. Mom, Dad, Leo. The same three, over and over, like a bad dream. 6 months ago, I walked away from that house in the quiet suburbs of Maplewood. No yelling, no tears. I just left quietly after my mother screamed the last words, "You ungrateful child, get out and don't come back." I turned my back as she said it, not to be strong, but because I was just too tired to talk back. After years of living like a ghost, I had no energy left to argue. Now I was sitting in a worn chair inside a small apartment in downtown Willow Creek. Every part of the place felt a bit tired, but at least it was mine. No one waited behind a door with a bill or a cold accusation, just the soft hum of the fan and warm sunlight coming through the window. The phone lit up again, Mom for the 5th time. A text popped up even before the phone rang. "Ava, if you still care about this family, even a little, please pick up. Leo is having a hard time." Leo is having a hard time. I pressed my lips together, swiping across the screen without opening it. I'd heard that phrase too many times. He's struggling. He needs you. He's your little brother. Leo, the one Mom had spoiled from age 10 through 31. The one who never held a real job, yet always had new clothes, new game systems, and someone to clean up his messes. That someone used to be me. I used to work 60 hours a week at the accounting firm, then come home to change light bulbs, cook dinner, and pay the electric bill. I used to be the good daughter, the one keeping the family afloat with my own hard work and sleepless nights. I once believed that if I just tried a little harder, they'd finally see me. I was wrong. I put the phone on silent, then placed it face down. The feeling of its buzz still echoed in my head, like a bad spell that hadn't quite gone away. But it was okay. I'd learned how to keep it from hurting me. I'd learned how to sit still and let them worry. The day I left, the sky was clear. No rain, no thunder to warn me. I packed a few clothes, my laptop, and an old teddy bear into a suitcase and locked the door behind me, like putting a period at the end of a sentence. They told me I wasn't welcome back, and I fully respected that. What they didn't expect was that I would actually disappear. Mom still sends weekly emails. Dad drops the occasional line like, "You shouldn't let your feelings control you." Leo, not once has he said sorry. But yesterday, he finally texted, "I can't believe you left Mom and Dad like this. The whole family is suffering because of you." Suffering because of me, because I stopped paying their water bill and house payment. I leaned back, feeling the ache in my back from the old but strong chair. I took a long, steady breath and realized the silence no longer scared me like it used to. It was clear, proof that I lived outside their power. Every phone buzz was a reminder, not of guilt, but of the freedom I'd fought for. For the past 6 months, I hadn't answered, not to be mean, but because I had to teach myself not to react to cries for help that weren't real. I had gotten used to being forgotten, but the feeling of being taken for granted, like the bathroom light or the Wi-Fi, was something I didn't learn to name until much later. When I was 11, I remember the exact day Leo scratched Dad's old truck. It was a big pickup that Dad always called his third child. Leo backed up without opening the garage door all the way, leaving a long scratch, like a claw mark across the gray paint. Mom found it first. She gasped loudly. Then silence. A minute later, she turned to me and asked, "Ava, did you touch the truck?" I froze. I had been at school at the time. I had a math test that morning and didn't even come home for lunch, but I was still the one questioned. Leo sat at the kitchen table with a slice of cold pizza, quiet, like it had nothing to do with him. And honestly, it never did. Favoritism in our house didn't show up like a storm. It crept in like mold, slow, quiet, sinking into every brick and crack. Some things you only realize once they've already taken over your life. I was never called smart or someone to be proud of. What I did, straight A's, honor rolls, state math awards, was just the basic minimum someone like me should achieve. Meanwhile, Leo got huge cheers just for going to all his classes for a week. I worked as a waitress at a diner in Willow Creek for 3 years during college. Every night, I'd get off around 10, hands aching from carrying hot trays, still rushing back to my rented room to study for my accounting exams. Leo majored in fun sports and dropped out halfway. Mom said, "It's just not his learning style." I remember once I had a fever of 103 degrees and still had to drive myself to the hospital because no one had time to take me. But when Leo had a mild stomach ache from eating too many fries, Mom called an ambulance. Both Mom and Dad showed up at the emergency room while I got a text, "There's instant noodles at home. I won't be back in time." When I got my first full-time job at the accounting company 6 years ago, I called home to share the news. My dad said, sarcastic, "Don't forget to keep up with your health insurance payments." But when Leo was invited to a weekend woodworking class, the entire family posted about it on social media, like he just got a full scholarship to a top university. I used to believe that if I did everything right, things would balance out. I thought if I just stayed out of trouble, proved my worth, they would finally see me as a real part of the family, not just a shadow cast by the son they truly cared about. But I was wrong. One night, I came home after a long shift, my back aching, my neck stiff as a board. I walked into the living room and saw Mom curled up on the couch with Leo, looking through a photo album. The only picture of me was tucked between pages, faded, too bright, and with no words. Meanwhile, Leo had 3 whole sections labeled "Our Angel's Childhood." I stood there for a long moment, waiting for someone to notice me. No one turned around, no one spoke, no one asked if I'd eaten. I went to my room, shut the door, and that was the first night I dreamed of running. Not running away, but running towards something. I had spent nearly 30 years in a house I thought was a safe place, only to realize I had never truly been welcome, not as a daughter, just as a tool, the one who carried the weight, filled in the gaps, and was always responsible so others could fall apart. The older I got, the more I realized every compliment they gave Leo was a slap in the face to my efforts. They didn't need me to shine. They just needed me to stay quiet, not ask for anything, not set limits, as long as I kept paying for a family built on sweet lies and crushing expectations. I still remember the exact moment things started to go wrong. It was in February, 1 week before the year-end tax deadline. I was working extra hours at the office, just finishing 40 hours in 3 days. When I left my desk, the clock showed 11:45 p.m. The streetlights reflecting off my car windows gave me a splitting headache, and I still had to go home and finish a financial report for a client. Mom called just as I was opening the car door. "Ava, I'm sorry to bother you, but the gas bill this month came out to nearly $190. Your dad forgot to pay it. Can you handle it for me?" I froze in the middle of opening the door, my work badge still around my neck. Before I could say anything, she added, "Just pay this once. I'll pay you back tomorrow." How many times had I heard that line before? Still, her voice made me feel soft. I transferred the money right there in the parking lot, then drove home like it was no big deal. But that was just the start. The next week, it was the electric bill, then water, then internet. At first, Mom always said, "Just a short-term loan. I'll repay you tomorrow." Slowly, that turned into, family is supposed to help each other. And Dad, yeah, Ava's got it. No one asked if I had the money. No one said sorry for calling me late at night. I was the kid with a monthly paycheck, so of course I was expected to carry the burden. A month later, Leo lost his credit because he missed payments on a graphic design laptop. Mom called me during a meeting. "Sweetheart, Leo's in a tough spot. He's really trying, but no one's helping him. Can you sign for him and get a replacement? It's just an old laptop, maybe $950. I'll pay you back gradually." I knew what gradually meant, but I still said yes. Because back then, I didn't fully understand that when love is used, it stops being love. Within 3 months, I was covering most of the household's monthly bills, around $1,200 a month. I sent money through my banking app so often I had to set up automatic reminders. Some months, when I gently said I needed to keep some money for myself, Mom sighed. "I didn't think you'd be so calculating. Our family's going through a hard time." One Saturday afternoon, I came home arms full of groceries, a box of laundry soap, toilet paper, and almond milk. As I stepped inside, I saw Leo sprawled out on the couch, eating pizza, watching videos on the big screen TV, the fan spinning above him. No one came out to help. No one asked if I was tired. I set the bags on the kitchen counter and heard Mom call from the bedroom. "Did you get Dad's favorite cookies?" I didn't answer. I just quietly opened the fridge. The only thing in there that belonged to me was a bottle of water and half a dried lemon. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and created a new spreadsheet. I listed each thing: electricity, gas, water, Leo's car repair, medicine for Dad, credit card debt I was forced to sign for. When the total appeared on the last line, I sat frozen for almost 10 minutes. 6 months, over $16,000. I printed the spreadsheet and taped it to the wall above my desk, not to remind myself to ask for repayment, but to never forget again, to stop lying to myself that I was giving out of love when the truth was I was being drained. I started saying no softly, like a little test. I refused to drive Leo to get his license renewed. The result? Mom called, her voice trembling. "You've changed, Ava. You've grown cold and selfish." Dad sent a short text, "You need to know your place." And Leo? He simply messaged, "Don't think a little money makes you special." I used to believe that if I was good enough, gave enough, they would realize how important I was. But now, when I started keeping just a small part for myself, they acted like I'd betrayed them. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of anger, but because I finally realized I had never been seen as someone with limits. I was just a supplier, a pump, a pillar. But a pillar with no support, eventually, it breaks. One Saturday afternoon, I left the office close to 6 p.m., still holding the lunchbox I hadn't had time to open all day. I had worked through the entire week. An urgent investment project, plus a surprise meeting with a big client, had kept me from getting home before dark. I still stopped by the grocery store, like always. I picked up everything Mom had texted me: 2 bottles of almond milk, lean beef, organic olive oil, whole grain bread. The total was nearly $175, not including the snacks and fruit I'd grabbed for Leo, though he'd never said thank you. I drove nearly 40 minutes south to the old house in Eastside Maplewood, where I'd lived for almost 20 years. Every time I turned onto that street, a knot twisted in my chest, not from good memories, but from a familiar, lingering ache. When I stepped inside, it wasn't fully dark yet, but the lights were already on. The front door was slightly open, as if they were expecting me. I nudged it open with my shoulder. My hands were full. No one came to greet me. Just the buzz of a reality TV show playing from the living room, one of those shows Leo always watched. I set the groceries on the kitchen counter. The smell of cleaning chemicals stung my eyes. Mom always cleaned the house on weekends, not for cleanliness, but to prove she still managed everything, though in truth, I was the one buying everything she used. I drove out of that neighborhood slower than usual. As each street lamp passed, like a line break in a sentence, I knew a chapter of my life had ended, not with fireworks, but with a quiet that couldn't be undone. On the way back to my apartment, I didn't play music. I didn't call anyone. Just the sound of tires rolling steadily across the road, a strange but calming feeling. No one waiting on me. No one expecting a receipt. No one asking for just one more little thing. By the time I got home, the clock read close to 8 p.m. I carried the bags up to my second-floor apartment, small, warm, softly lit with pale yellow light and the faint scent of lavender oil still lingering. I placed the bags on the kitchen counter, slipped off my shoes, hung up my coat. Every motion was slow, strangely peaceful, like I had just stepped out of a storm I didn't realize I'd been trapped in for years. It wasn't until I poured a glass of water and sat down on the couch that I started to shake, not from fear, but because my body had finally relaxed after so many years spent on high alert. I looked around the room. Everything was old. A garage sale table, a faded fabric couch, a plant in the corner, just growing a new leaf after 2 months of not being cared for. But this was my space. No criticism, no guilt, no demands that I somehow hold it together. Just one more time. I opened my laptop and pulled up my budget spreadsheet. The total column read $19,840.17. That's how much I had given since January. No money back, no promises kept. I scrolled to the bottom, added a final line. Final expense, freedom, cost, priceless. And then I closed it. I didn't need to see it again. That night, I slept 8 full hours. No dreams, no waking up to late-night texts from Leo, just the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the steady rhythm of my heart. Finally, at peace. 3 days after I walked out of that East Side Maplewood house, I sat alone in the small kitchen of my second-floor apartment, frying eggs in an old pan I'd bought online. The butter sizzled, the smell of coffee drifted through the morning air, and the strangest part was no one was calling me. No phone ringing, no texts saying, "Ava, can you send $120 to fix the plumbing?" No money alerts, no one asking if I could pay for Dad's medicine or chip in a little more so Leo wouldn't have to eat instant noodles again tonight. For the first time in years, I had breakfast without checking my bank balance, and I didn't feel guilty spending money on myself. I sat my coffee down and looked out the window. The April breeze in Willow Creek still had a morning chill, but it no longer stung. It felt like a soft reminder. I'm alive, and I have the right to live in peace. I started building a routine that was mine. Every evening after work, I shut my laptop by 6 p.m., no more after-hours emails. I signed up for a Wednesday yoga class and spent Saturdays at the local farmer's market, where I learned spring tomatoes are sweeter than I ever realized. I bought a few books I used to think were too much of a luxury. I started planting herbs on my balcony, a pot of rosemary, a few lavender bushes, and a little mint plant that I accidentally gave too much water, but somehow it still lived. In those quiet evenings, I began to understand something. Silence wasn't scary like I used to think. Back in that old house, every quiet moment felt like a storm waiting to break. Mom's silence meant she was angry, Dad's silence meant judgment, and Leo's silence meant he was planning his next request. But here, silence just meant no one needed anything from me, and that wasn't selfish. That was freedom. For the first time in over 10 years, I could actually plan to save. I opened a separate account just for personal goals, a trip to the mountains, a new laptop, maybe even hiring a financial advisor to better understand investing. One Sunday morning, I made a batch of cold brew coffee and sat on the balcony. The sentence where I folded the page read, "You don't owe anyone the slow wearing away of your life just to keep them comfortable." I'd spent so long believing family meant giving up everything without question. But then I realized carrying others doesn't mean burning yourself to give them light and shade. One afternoon in early May, I ran into Chloe, an old college friend, at a company meeting. When we had lunch, she looked at me and said, "You're doing better, aren't you? You look like the Ava from freshman year, only stronger." I just smiled. No stories needed. The way I sat, with my back straight, not checking the time every minute, not clutching my phone like someone was about to demand money for feelings, that was answer enough. I didn't block my mom, dad, or Leo, but I turned off notifications, not to hide, but to stop being pulled back in. Over the past 6 months, I've seen their texts. Some blaming, some pretending nothing happened, some begging. But I haven't replied because I've learned replying isn't always kindness. Sometimes silence is self-defense. That night, while cleaning up after dinner, I opened the mail. Among the usual flyers was a thin envelope, return address from the bank, Mom's name on the top, but mine printed in the bottom right corner. I opened it. Third house payment warning. I froze for a second. Then I set the letter down, folded it, and exhaled slowly. I knew what was coming, and this time I was ready to face it without looking down. The message from Dad came while I was organizing the company's quarterly report. Just 8 words. Ava, why haven't you paid this month? I read it 3 times. My eyes stopped at the word paid, like it was some invisible duty I had forgotten. No greeting, no question mark, no context, as if I was still part of their family's money system without ever being told. I shut my laptop, took out my phone, and opened my banking app. For the past 6 months, I hadn't sent them a single dollar. I thought that was clear. Apparently, they thought I was just on pause. I pulled up my old payment history before I left. I had been sending $1,300 a month to help cover the house payment, as Mom used to put it. I never saw the actual bill. There was no contract. My name wasn't on any ownership document. I wanted to ignore it, but something pushed me, so I called the bank. The customer service person answered after 3 rings. I gave the address, confirmed my identity, and asked, trying to keep my voice steady, "Can you tell me the current status of the house payment for 123 Oak Lane?" He hesitated, then replied, "That account is 8 months behind. It's currently in pre-foreclosure. Final notice was sent about 3 weeks ago." I froze. 8 months? That meant even while I was still sending money, they weren't paying the bank. I hung up, shocked, numb. All those late nights working extra hours, all the times I denied myself basic comforts just to transfer money by the 15th each month, and they hadn't even used it for the house payment. I opened my budgeting spreadsheet, traced every transaction. From the moment I started helping temporarily to when I finally stopped, I had sent over $18,000. And now that house was about to be taken. I called Leo. He picked up faster than I expected. "Ava, finally! Mom's freaking out. The bank sent another letter. What's your plan?" I was confused. My plan for what? I'm not involved with that house anymore. He sighed loudly, his voice full of blame. "Don't play dumb. You've been paying the house payment all this time. Then you suddenly cut us off, and now the bank's threatening to take the house. Don't you feel any responsibility?" I bit my tongue. What about the money I sent for 8 straight months? Who had it? Who used it? He went silent for a moment, then flatly, "I don't know. Mom said you were only covering part of it, so the last few months came up short. She probably used it." I cut in. "You live there. You didn't notice the bank notices, the power being shut off, then turned back on? You didn't wonder why the house payment wasn't being paid even though I was sending money?" His voice sharpened. "What are you trying to say? We're struggling. You're out there living comfortably, and we're about to lose the house. All it takes is 1 more month's payment. They'll work with us." I laughed coldly. "I'm not your backup plan anymore, Leo. And don't say we. I'm not part of your group." I hung up. 3 minutes later, Mom called. I let it ring. My chest tightened, but I didn't give in. Her text followed right after. Short bursts. "Ava, I'm sorry if you felt pressured, but this house is yours too. You grew up here. You'll regret it if we lose it." I didn't reply, because for the first time in my life, I saw it clearly. They never saw me as their daughter, only as their unofficial insurance policy, a walking wallet, a bailout button for mistakes, on repeat. I looked at the bank letter still on my table. Then I tore it in half. Not out of anger, but because I had finally accepted the truth. I couldn't save a house I never owned, just like I never really had a place in that family. That night, I opened my phone and scrolled through the endless string of messages from Mom. it took 3 swipes just to reach the first one. Ava, I know you're upset, but it's not as simple as you think. Your dad lost his insurance coverage, and Leo has no one else to rely on but you. If you let the bank take the house, the entire family will say you're heartless. Then came a text from Dad. Sweetheart, this is still your home too. You really want to see us on the street? And Leo, always rude and thoughtless. Fine, just walk away. We'll see who helps you when it's your turn to need someone. I stared at the screen, feeling nothing. No anger, no hurt, just a chilling clarity. They had built a whole system around me where my kindness was a duty and my silence was a trap. Every time I helped, they saw it as expected. Every time I stayed quiet, they assumed I was weak. I called back, not because they deserved an explanation, but because I wanted to end things properly. Mom picked up after one ring. She put it on speaker, and I could hear Dad and the sound of tapping on the table in the background. Leo was clearly nearby. Ava, Mom began, her voice so sweet it made my skin crawl. I just want to ask one thing, I said slowly. 8 months ago, I was still sending the house payments. Where did that money go? Silence for a few seconds. Then Mom stammered, Well, your dad needed dental work. Then Leo's car broke down. And you know, the cost of living's gone up. Everything piled on. I meant to sort it out later, but so I cut in. You all used the money I sent for unrelated things, then let the house go into foreclosure? Dad jumped in. We didn't mean for it to happen, but you left right when things got hard. If you'd stayed, maybe it wouldn't have gotten this bad. I scoffed. No, if I had stayed, you would have still hidden the truth, still spent my money, and made me clean up the mess just like always. Mom's tone snapped. But Ava, don't be so ungrateful. I carried you for 9 months. Now we're about to lose our home and you just look away? No, I replied calmly. I'm not ungrateful, but I'm not stupid anymore either. Silence. I went on. I'm your daughter, not a financial rescue plan. I'm not your private bank, not your last resort. And I'm definitely not the excuse you use to dodge your own responsibilities. Leo shouted in the background, You think you're so special. Without us, you'd be nothing. I laughed, not out of fun, but because that sentence confirmed everything I'd suspected for years. I didn't succeed because of you, I said. I succeeded despite you. Mom started crying. Dad exhaled loudly. Leo muttered something I couldn't catch. I no longer cared. I wish you all the best, I said. From now on, you own your choices. And if anyone asks why I cut ties with that house, tell them the truth. You spent the money I sent, then kept the truth from me. I hung up. My hand didn't shake. My heart beat slow. I opened my contacts. Mom blocked, Dad blocked, Leo blocked. Not out of hatred, but because I needed peace. I sent one final message in the family group chat. Just one line. I'm not your backup plan anymore. Goodbye. Then I left the group. For the first time in years, my phone went completely quiet. No guilt-filled texts, no midnight calls, no repeated rings like alarms warning me I'd done something wrong. I sat on the sofa and poured myself a cup of peppermint tea. Outside the window, the sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving a streak of orange across the sky. I leaned back against the cushion, eyes closed, feeling empty yet full in the strangest way. I didn't know how they'd get by now, who they'd find to blame, what story they'd tell relatives, neighbors, and friends. I only knew one thing. I was no longer the ending to that story. Ava's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes family doesn't come with respect. Cutting ties with harmful relationships, even those called family, isn't selfish. It's a brave act of self-protection. In real life, many people are quietly carrying heavy loads, sacrificing themselves out of duty. But real love never demands you give up who you are or your peace. You have every right to say enough.